All right, dear ones, good morning. And it is morning here in the snowy Berkshires on Monday, but we are recording for Tuesday. So, Tuesday, the 6th day of December, 2016. And we realize that, and we are so too. And we realize, Adrian is smiling at us from the corner. You can see her right up there. All right. Um, we have a few things we would like to speak with you about today. There have been a number of circumstances that have manifested very recently, and especially over the weekend. The Dakota pipeline dynamic has seemingly had a step forward in its dynamic, and we would suggest to you that there is that dynamic of success and that dynamic of movement, but that it was allowed to happen in order to, what shall we say, avoid a further crystallization of within the dynamics of what is occurring in your reality right now, because you must understand that there are a number of energies, there are a number of, what shall we say, powers that wish to keep you from, what shall we say, joining your energy together in such a way that begins to speak to a truth that becomes apparent only when there is a certain number of energies, a certain number of individuals that are emotionally in the same place. So many in your world right now are speaking of the dynamics of truths and truth this and truth that, but there are three different kinds of truth. There is physical truth that basically comes from the brain and the understanding of that dynamic. There is the dynamic of emotional truth, and that basically comes from the dynamic of the heart. And then there is the dynamic of spiritual truth, which basically comes from the dynamic of the consideration of both. And so, if you understand that, that is the movement, that is the dynamic that is happening in your world right now. The basic precepts of personal reality creation hold through for the consensus reality as well. You create your realities through your thoughts, your words, and your feelings from both your conscious and your subconscious mind. And we would suggest to you that the same holds true within the dynamics of the consensus reality. Now, the thing that you are not told is that the raw material is emotion, and the brain, the mind, is only intended to sort out the definitions of what the emotional dynamic is, because the emotion is the raw material of creation, the raw material of creation as filtered through your own beliefs, your own judgments, your own understanding, and your, what shall we say, your emotional reflections of your world. And so, when so many are asking what the truth is, we would suggest to you that, as has been reflected in your reality recently, there is the literal truth, and then there is the emotional truth. Now, from the literal and the emotional truth, you can ascertain the spiritual truth of a dynamic. But the spiritual truth of a dynamic comes from a deep knowing which you need to learn to begin to, as individuals, begin to trust in yourselves, for it is that dynamic of that emotional and physical, the mental and emotional dynamic that leads you to a greater dynamic of a spiritual truth. And the spiritual truth of the dynamic is that between now and, we say, the next 90 days, there are going to be a great many things manifesting in your reality which you are going to be asked to cope with. It is why we began last week's session with the dynamic of understanding resentment and perhaps allowing yourself to give up that resentment. Now, we lost a couple of subscribers in that dynamic because we believed that they were believing that we were saying a certain dynamic of reality is the truth. And, there are certain people that find the truth very uncomfortable. And as we have often said, comfort is not a prerequisite in the dynamic of growth, in the dynamic of movement. It could be if you were all tuned enough to reading the reflections of your soul, the reflections of your reality, in such a way as to answer them. But so many of the things that have occurred in your world, there is such a disconnect between you and the understanding of the language that is coming at you from the reflection of your reality. There's so little understanding of that basically what you get down to is a dynamic of emotional truth operating as the, what shall we say, the director, the guide for your reality. Also, the dynamic that is occurring is that each and every one of you, as well as your species, as well as all of the incarnate beings on this planet and in the universe, are on what shall we say, a divine journey, are on a journey of spiritual growth. Of course, there is physical and emotional growth that goes along with that, but underlying the whole dynamic is the dynamic of grow, grow, be more, grow, be more. And yes, it is like a wave action. There are advancements and there are setbacks. But as you become more aware of your own empowerment, as you become more aware that your thoughts, your words, powered by the dynamic of your emotions, create your reality, and that it is only through the dynamics of your limiting beliefs that you're not good enough, that there is not enough, that someone is better than you, that money is the root of all evil. There are any number of beliefs that so many of you hold that shape your reality. It is time for an examination of that. You are coming up to a period in your year, those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, that we call the dark night of the soul. And that dynamic of the dark night of the soul will be manifesting itself between the dynamics of your holidays of Christmas and New Year's. And in the dynamics of that manifestation, you are going to be given a great many opportunities. Now, those of you that are listening to this can begin to affect that energy simply by hoping for, praying for, meditating for the best possible outcome, and then allowing that outcome to manifest. You are hurtling down a path with a great deal of momentum behind you. That dynamic is going to culminate very shortly. And it is then that we will begin to work with you around the opportunities of really understanding how and why you create the realities that you do and what you can begin to do to change everything. It's going to require a shift in thinking, a shift in understanding, a shift in emotional truth. It is going to begin to measure your reality by the levels of emotional truth, not necessarily just by literal truth, because they are very different, dear ones. They are very different, and we will be speaking to you more about that dynamic next week. Dear ones, please understand we are not here to scare you, but we are here to prepare you. Allow yourself to detach. We would suggest to you that those of you that are going home for the holidays, you might wish to get there a few days early. We would avoid large crowds. Now, there are very few of you that work with us that are in any real danger. But those of you that stumble across this video, these minor precautions, even if nothing occurs, but we believe that something will occur, based upon our reading of the energy at the moment, please understand, the truths have not been revealed yet, but they shortly will be. And it's up to you, dear one, to make your own assessment. What is your truth? It would serve you to find that out now, rather than having to find that out as a reaction to a crisis. We are SOTU, and this is SOTUesday for the 6th day of December, 2016. We love you all so very, very much. We will be back next week. And so until then, we close, sending you peace, sending you happiness, sending you joy.